They used to call it the spirit of Australia. Has it become the spirit of greed? Remember the chaos at airports when the pandemic restrictions came off a couple of months ago? Alan Joyce, the chief executive of Qantas, blamed his own customers. He said, "Our customers match fit."
And it's those travellers who are wearing the blame, told they're not match fit when it comes to checking in for takeoff.
What's going on at Qantas? The media loves Qantas. Shareholders love Qantas. Customers are bemoaning the decline in service standards, and the staff absolutely loathe the management. There is a culture issue. This from a 35-year veteran of Qantas, a pilot. It's back to the 50s. Blue collar versus white collar. Everyone just hates them. They absolutely hate them. So there's a culture problem here. Alan Joyce is a star in the media. During the pandemic, they managed to get rid of 9,400 workers, 2,000 illegally, and that's subject to a High Court challenge at the moment. But the share market and investors love that sort of thing. They love to see people getting sacked. The share prices actually go up. And while the service was going through the floor, subsidies were going through the roof. No single corporation in Australian history has had as many handouts in public money as has Qantas. More than $2 billion, and it is a very poor taxpayer. What was given in return? What did the government demand in return for this $2,000 million subsidy handout? Nothing. There was not one thing asked in return. As my Qantas pilot source said, they were absolutely pantsed. Not even nationalisation. You know, we could have bought this thing when it hit the wall, drained the oil out of the planes, put them in the desert, as you do, and then could have refloated them on the share market a couple of years later for a $10 billion profit, $10 billion in proceeds. Instead, we just shower this money at Qantas, run by a guy, Alan Joyce, who is a very canny operator. He's a very good corporate operator, but run by a guy who used to be paid $24 million a year. And his pay again is going through the roof because they strike these option deals when the share price is low. And when the share price rises, there's tens of millions of dollars in profits for the executive team. So what's happened here? They've run down the standards, the service, to cut costs. They've grifted billions from government, and they've sacked so many staff and treated them so poorly that every union, every one of the 5 unions, flight attendants, ground engineers, transport workers union, baggage handlers, pilots, they're all fighting Qantas management. And that tension has flowed through to performance. One source tells me that the engineers, when Joyce came along and changed their 14-day shift, 3 days on, 3 days off, 4 nights on, 4 nights off, to an 8-hour day, in order to cut costs, it didn't suit them. There wasn't negotiations. There was heavy-handed corporate behaviour. And so the Sickies have gone through the roof. One day, I'm told, there were 60% of ground engineers sick. These are the guys that make sure the planes fly in the sky. Now, you don't have to worry about safety because they have to be signed off. But how many planes are there in backlog? How many flights are being cancelled because of all these brawls between staff and management? It's hard to determine the value of culture. We can only hear stories. But we know one thing. We're not hearing the right story from the corporate media because on the day there was a massive fight going on between the workers and the management. You know what was run in Nine Network and the other networks in the mainstream media? A story about Qantas upgrading its bloody cocktail menu. These guys, the journalists, get squired around by Qantas PR. They get taken to nice lunches, given first-class flights. And let's face it, Qantas is one of Australia's biggest advertisers. And when I was business editor of the Sydney Morning Herald, I can tell you right now, they're not shy about telling management about that. They're not shy to tell management. In fact, they say, if you write this story, we will pull our advertising. There's a lot of pressure there. So we are not hearing the right story. But by George, Customers are feeling it and staff are living it. This YouTube clip was brought to you by the community, by the people that fund us on Patreon. We don't receive Qantas ads. We're funded by you, the community. So ship it in, help us, support us, so we can pay for the team, pay for the costs, and bring you the truth of these situations without any compromise.